Well, shall we get started with the work session? This is a work session, utility rate study. It is April 19th, 2022, and we will begin. So who wants to start with what we're looking at here?
I guess I will,
Okay.
since I'm the chair. We met, Cara and the city manager and Adam and I met and went through the rate study, talked about it, which you have in your packet. Northland gave us 3 scenarios to pick from. They worked out cost adjustments and everything for the 3 scenarios. And after serious discussion, we decided to bite the bullet and take the hit on the largest increase first, rather than split it out between a large increase and then another, half of that and then another 3% after. We decided that we were better off just biting the bullet. There hadn't been an increase in, help me,
10 years
10 years.
to the utility itself.
Yeah,
There had been amendments with the recycle fee.
right.
Yeah.
And the problem was when 10 years ago, when it was talked about adding, just building in an increase every year after that, and it was never done. So now we're where we're at. So we're gonna have to take a hit on a big one. It finally had gotten out of the red. But with costs increase between fuel and at the transfer station, we're paying more at the transfer station than what we had been. Cost of living for wages, equipment costs, you know what equipment costs, because we just gave Adam a new truck. Another one coming, yes. So you know about equipment costs, and that's only gonna go up. We're gonna have to replace the trailer, what do you call it?
It's a walking floor trailer for the recycling
Yes,
and a telehandler here soon.
that's gonna have to be replaced coming up soon. So we're just gonna have to make adjustments. And we decided that the big one was the best way to go. It's figured out to about $4 a month for an average residential household. And then each year after that, it's gonna be about $1 a month. And there's increases to residential, commercial, and the dumpster costs, which is all in this packet. And other than that, we just have to, we'll have to do a public hearing and a resolution. to
Is
approve
this
it.
pretty, well, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at other towns across Iowa, or is this what's happening?
We have been below other towns, and I don't know if this still will sit us, I don't know where this will sit us with the new rate.
I mean, like, in terms of not necessarily what we pay, but are other people, is it increasing these?
Yes,
Yeah,
everybody's
it's everywhere.
increasing rates.
For the same
Cost is
reasons.
just going up.
Madam Mayor, I've had, and city manager, we've had several inquiries from other cities asking on all of our utility rates. And also we've had private contractors inquiring on our rates as well. And there have been some cities that are researching again, private versus public and costs. And I've not seen anything in the feeds that, anyone's going to, for a city of our size, going to a private. So, and again, with it being 10 years, and you can kind of look at, on your documents there, when you're looking at scenario A on page 4, from left to right, from the fiscal years, that change for services, you can see the percentage there at the top.
.50.
as far as revenue. And so, yeah, and so when you get across to fiscal year 21, 22, it's projected that we're gonna have a negative of revenue.
Thank you. I couldn't find where we were at.
Yep, sorry.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yep. And then when you, and I'll just skip kind of down because it tells you the details of, you know, where our revenue comes from. And then looking at operating expenditures, again, looking from left to right on that very top, those percentages are projecting, you know, our expenses. So those are clearly, those percentages are up. And then our revenue, I mean, that's a big spread. And we still have, we have the recycling grant. And I apologize, I don't know if Chip had put that in there when that
Yeah.
recycling grant.
That's in there.
Because I was
Yeah.
looking,
It's in there in one of the
Yeah.
pages.
25, 26 is when it
Yeah,
should be last paid off.
yeah.
Can you explain the operating income? What do we do with that?
The operating revenue or
Line 67, yeah.
line 67. So, and again, and maybe the committee chair, because they set in with Chip or city manager.
Chip did
So
the-
operating income is gonna be based on what your expenditures are, or what your revenue is less your expenditures.
Right.
So when you're looking at that line, you can see
The
that.
514 minus 432. So,
Yep.
yeah. So what do we, I guess my question is when people say, well, why are we increasing when you're making money? Or so I just,
Yep.
what
right.
do we do with that money, or what is
Mhm.
it put back into our utilities, or how does
It's-
that?
It would stay in the utility and then you reserve. So anything that you would have revenue over an expenditure, then that goes into an equipment reserve
And
for
that's how we buy the
future.
trucks.
Yeah.
So everybody knows.
In a
Yeah.
semi, in a trailer,
Mhm.
telehandler,
Everything.
And the
dumpsters.
dumpsters, garbage cans.
Or if there was an emergency or.
Yep, and if we had, so, and Adam can explain a little more about equipment because, I mean, the trucks, I mean, we've exceeded the trucks' lives, you
This
know.
fund has only ever done enough to stay even.
Okay.
Mhm.
To stay
I just want to make
at
sure, because
zero.
when you look at this, it's like, oh, well,
And that's
it's
a
like you're
terrible
making money. Why are you?
utility.
And I think-
We're actually not,
I think the
because
thing you need to look at is look at page 5 then,
Mhm.
because you've got your income and then you're showing that debt that's being paid back.
Yep.
Plus for capital. So when you look at that bottom line,
We're actually not.
That's
we're
where,
really not making a ton of money.
Okay.
no, and what the difference is left over is so that we can afford the capital improvements.
Right,
Because
okay.
we're not just writing, we're not just like people live paycheck to paycheck. We can't do that with the
Right.
city.
Okay.
We actually have to have some revenue in there in order to utilize it
Okay.
for these capital improvements. And 82,000, if you're looking at page 4,
Mhm.
isn't going to pay. for
Doesn't
a
do much.
vehicle.
Right.
no, because you go to page 5 and as David's saying, you know,
You
so
go to page
that's
5,
your,
it's-
that's your expenditures and revenue, and then you go to page 5, then your debt comes out for this, for the grant.
Mhm.
And then, you know, then
Internal loan.
at the very bottom there's a deficit.
Mhm.
And although we, you know, believe to be out of the deficit in 1819 and 1920, it really was, it wasn't so much so because we hadn't started paying on, you know, the grant. We were taking in revenue for the grant for the project.
Mhm.
And then, you know, project's done and now we gotta pay. And so, you know, and the council had kept the recycle fee low because at the time, there was a market for the recycle. So, unfortunately, after everything was said and done, there was no market. And and Adam can kind of explain, and Diane, because they were a part, as council, previous council, the the market not being there, the Scott County was very good with us because they took on that recycle to allow us to have the program. But then it, eventually we had to pay for the tipping costs and the weight of that. So now it is starting to rebound, but we lost all those years
Yeah,
of
and not,
having,
and not rebound to a point where we're actually making any sustainable profit from it.
and just now, just like Diane and said, is like, even though our market's coming back a little bit, so is the cost to operate. It goes
Well,
up.
And the cost for insurance and the cost for employee, to pay employees, benefits, so forth. Yeah, and then insurance, both for liability as well as health, all of that is continuing to proceed on. And so we have to maintain along with that. And if you guys remember, when we first had our strategic planning meeting, this was the reason, that is primarily the reason for the strategic planning, is because that is where we as a council decide where we can allocate those funds when we need it. So keep in mind it's like everything is connected and it all works together in that.
Well, and one thing that he didn't figure into this that we talked about in our committee meeting is that the internal loans that were made to the solid waste, the garbage from electric, water and sewer does need to be paid back. And that's not figured into this.
He
He took it out.
He
Yeah,
took it out.
It's in there in the
Took it
debt,
out,
yeah.
And we talked about just maybe for the next couple of years, just paying the interest on those loans, but not forgiving. them.
Until we start seeing some of these
And
numbers.
then,
numbers
and then those
increase,
principal payments could be paid back to the utilities to make sure that they're made whole from the original loans.
So when we pass this, can we write that into the resolution so that we'll pay this much interest or we'll pay the interest off for this many years?
just to clarify this step,
Yeah.
so we will amend an ordinance. But we certainly can do an addition resolution saying that that is specific to the loan itself.
Okay.
And then we would have a resolution on file, what the action needs to be for the paying back the loan. So if council directs us to only pay interest, or council states, no, let's hold off for a couple of years and then review it. It can all be written out for those steps in the resolution to direct staff on how to manage that.
But I think as a committee, I think we looked at the interest payments were to
We talked about it.
$2,500 between the three, I think. roughly.
Yeah, we talked about interest payments for a few years, and then when we start building the revenue again, then we can start looking at payments onto the actual loan, the principal.
And how much was that loan? I'm sorry.
It was originally 250,000, and there's about 112,000 of principal left. They started out with very small
Okay.
principal payments, so really there's about 2 years of principal payments due back to the three entities. They total about $112,000.
And just to go back to even with Dana in the resolution, we would want to identify those balances. And so to make sure, it would be a question for our financial advisor, if you wanted to accrue on top. But again, I mean, it's an internal loan, so just paying what's actually owed to those utilities is a priority.
And Lee, tell me if I'm off base on this or not, but isn't it customary for fiscal prudence to make sure that we have a certain amount or a certain percentage in each utility in order for us to be in good standing?
So with the solid waste, we do not have a bond.
Okay,
So
Okay.
we're not obligated under, a bond requirement.
okay.
However, it should be though within, when you're looking at your revenues, just as you already stated, a percentage that you want to, with the equipment reserve plan, you would want to tie in a percentage that you're looking at to allocate towards a reserve. In the 10 years I've been with the city, the only reserve we've had is $30,000. And we all know $30,000, a major fix on any of that equipment is,
Buy all new tires for every piece of equipment, that's about it.
yeah. So, again, that would be, in addition, is you can set a resolution specific stating that, council based on revenues wants a percentage allocated towards a reserve fund for future purchases. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that with the rate hike, there wasn't also but then going to be talk that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, nope, that. And then this, again, we go back to financial advisement that, we're having a plan in place with a percentage of increase to stay on top of those operating expenses. And keep in mind, you can look at it to review. So when the recycle loan expires and it's paid in full, that may allow council to say, okay, we're gonna, we can take a break if the revenues look good. And even if you have a resolution stating that you're going to increase by 1 to 3% on an annual basis, you can write in your resolution, you'll have the rates, you'll have the revenues reviewed. And at that time, if it appears that we're setting in where we need to be as far as reserve or any, you can, have it not go into effect because you have a good revenue base. So all those things can come back and be reviewed.
And we did recommend a review within 5 years
Okay.
of the rates.
We just really want to make sure that we don't lose track and lose sight to where we're in that position, because it's really easy.
Where we have to do an
absorb.
18%
Well,
again.
It's really easy to absorb it, 2-3% each year. It's not that bad, but when you have to take this big hit, I mean, it's just.
That seems smart. And I just a thought when this happens, I think there needs to be sort of a cohesive, very simple communication campaign. Jacob, I'm looking at you as far as that goes, so that people understand why this is happening and what the money goes to, so that they don't think that it's just the city pocketing money to, I don't even know, squirrel away like a squirrel,
Madam Mayor, I would further add, in recent weeks, we've received some correspondence about, the trash and a community cleanup. And so exactly. So that's the thing is, those programs, they're certainly wonderful. And it's not that the city has not wanted to support, but there is, it's difficult to explain. Yeah, that's a heavy weight of items. And I know at one point in time, it cost the city almost $60,000 for a curbside citywide cleanup.
That's what I've heard.
And that's been almost 10 years ago. And then when the city had provided just the dumpster, again, that was half of that cost. And that did not include staffing for the day.
Right.
So, and again, just to state, I mean, I can't think of anyone in our city that's ever not been supportive of it. It's just, we have to plan financially for it.
Yes, absolutely.
So
that's the type of things that these rate increases will go towards. So
Absolutely.
for-
certainly look at that.
Last time we did a community cleanup, we had a lot of people from the neighboring towns dumping.
Oh, really?
dumping
Yeah.
the-
Just like
Into the
randomly
dumpster,
Yeah,
inserting
Taking-
things. Yeah, that's not a good thing.
large items into the dumpster.
That's not good.
If you're gonna do a community-wide cleanup, the things you need to do now, rather than going curbside, is to really just have a location with dumpsters, your crew there, and people bring it to you for that open window to dispose of it.
Where they check
And
IDs or
then you're able
something?
to seal it off and have those dumpsters
Residents.
removed, and,
Residents.
I mean, there's still a cost because you're still dumping, but when most of the cities that I've worked for, they've gotten away from the curbside because it's just it's
I
kinda
came
like
from
what Jose
Corville where
said,
we
that
did
people
it.
just start
Absolutely.
breaking stuff in.
It's lovely every year.
But when we've moved to like a 1 day, 5 or 6 hour window where we, had 5 or 6 40-yard dumpsters, and we had our crew there to assist, with the backhoe, helping load stuff into those dumpsters, it was smooth, and those dumpsters were tarped and they were all off. So,
Ours were not hauled off that day.
Yeah.
well,
They were hauled off to our shop.
well, as long as they're in a secure location,
Yeah,
though, that's the main thing. Otherwise, if you leave it out somewhere publicly,
Yep.
you come back on Monday and there's
Yep.
tires and batteries and all sorts of things that get dropped off on those dumpsters over the weekend, so. And I think part of this ordinance, Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, is the ordinance would show the new rate as well as the adjustments for the next few years would all be tied in, so we don't lose sight of that.
Great.
What are we doing with the old trucks?
Trade-ins,
Trade-ins.
They're-
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
we received,
Yeah, I think
actually,
you said that.
Adam got a really good trade for the
Automated truck.
for the
yeah.
automated truck, but if we were able to replace that for 2 years, we'd probably get about a third of what they're giving
Oh,
us.
nice. Good job, Adam.
Now, the rear loader, it was bought used, correct me, Adam, if I'm wrong,
Yep,
and there's not a ton of value, but we will see a little bit of trade-in value on it, not near what we're seeing.
yeah, it was already 9 years old when they got it,
Right.
so it was already,
It's tired.
yeah, it was a good way of putting it, it was tired. Now it's more tired.
Another weight.
I know how it feels. Thank you, Diane and Cara, for doing this work. Any other questions, comments?
So Madam Mayor, on the agenda this evening, we do have to set a public hearing. Again, we'll establish a public hearing with an amended ordinance and post that publicly. And then have open hearings, so the public will be able to come in and state, their discussion or their comments to the. And what we'll do is I'll work with Jacob to, not only with a public comment or a public notice that we're required to, but we can work together to make sure we do education and putting the information on and what the dollar impact, because percentages versus the actual dollar.
Yeah,
a lot
because
of times
18 is
helps.
scary, but $4. I mean, I know every little bit is
It
important
does,
to
it
people,
does. Yeah, and just as all of you have stated, is the education of where those funds and what we can potentially work towards as far as, having a community cleanup
Right.
and all of the funds and where they go and what they cover.
And I don't-
And I think it's important to remind people that you look at that fee and it's a monthly fee, so you can break that down by a week, and not only does that have our staff come pick up your trash, but we're also picking up leaves or brush and things now throughout the year that, are part of that cost. So it's not that you're just paying for trash, it's the other services that go along with that. And I think we had this discussion when we met at the committee. It's like, when people, you have to raise water rates, and when cities were taking water to $5 for 1,000 gallons, people were like kind of losing their minds. Oh my God, we're going to $5 for 1,000 gallons of water. Yet they'd be standing there with a bottle of Life Water or those name brands and say, well, how much did you pay for that bottle? Well, it was $2 or $3.
Well, it's just, I mean,
It's
cost of
the
everything going up is
perception of
compounded
what
on
you're getting
people.
for those dollars.
Harder.
1,000 gallons of water for $5 is pretty cheap. And I think this trash service is still very cheap, and we've got local people doing it. And, and if we miss something, we've got the opportunity to correct it.
Yeah. Great. Anybody have anything else to add? What time is it? Do we want to take a 7-minute quick little break, and then we'll reconvene here at 6 and get the party started?